As some of you may know, I recently did a video where I told you that I lost 30 million streams in the last 2 years. A lot of people would get discouraged by that, but it actually gave me a huge hit of inspiration. That being said, I've been doing some reflecting and it has led me to completely change my 2024 Spotify release strategy. So in this video, I'm giving you 6 ways I'm changing my strategy, and stick around because number 6 might just be the most important. If you don't know who I am, my name is L.Dre. I'm a lo-fi producer and I have a little over 700,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. This year I got 34 million streams on my Spotify Wrapped, but as I mentioned earlier, 2 years ago I had 65 million streams. I've taken quite a hit, still doing great though, no complaints. Sorta. But the first 2 things I plan on doing differently in 2024 is releasing more frequently and focusing less on editorial playlists. Now this part of my strategy is actually inspired by Nick D, who's like one of the biggest independent artists out right now. He gets like 1 million streams a day. I actually just did like a video interview type thing with him, and that'll be coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. So what Nick told me was essentially he doesn't really focus on editorial playlists at all, and pretty much he's made Spotify's release radar playlist his best friend. Now the difference between the two is your release radar is basically a algorithmic playlist that gets pushed out to all your followers on Spotify. If you didn't know, if you like an artist, you can follow them. And really the only way for people to know you release music on Spotify without you telling them on social media is through this release radar playlist. And the good thing about this compared to editorial playlists is you only have to pitch like a week in advance to get into it. Plenty of people are always asking me how to get into editorial playlists, and I've made tons of videos about it, and I've talked about how you really need to pitch at least 3 to 4 weeks in advance, because that gives the editorial teams enough time to actually see your song and potentially place it in a playlist. Now the problem with that is my strategy for the past year or so has been pretty much only releasing 1 track every 3 to 4 weeks. So by switching my focus from editorials to release radar, I can start releasing like every week or every other week and not worry about the pitch too much. So that way I can release more frequently, and more music equals more streams, more catalog, and more new content for the fans. And I know this kind of goes against everything I've probably taught you guys in the past, because this video is aimed at all types of musicians out there. But you know, I'm a producer and a lot of my following are also producers. And when you just make beats, playlists are really what makes an artist's career for the most part. But I think that whole idea kind of warped my brain into kind of more so relying on that. But what made me popular in the first place was not editorial playlists whatsoever. It was me making videos, making content, making remixes, and then those going viral, and then those people going to my Spotify and following me and listening to my music and adding it to their own personal playlist. Which leads me to strategy number 2. I plan on doing more of what made me popular in the first place. Now one thing you may notice in this video is these strategies are the things that are going to be working for me, I believe. If you want a more basic or broad video on just general tips for music success, I've got one link for you from last year. I actually just watched it. Everything still applies. Everything is still good info. But this is just what I'm doing differently. I spoke on this a little bit in my last video, but essentially I got popular by doing my lo-fi remixes of the cartoon songs or just popular songs in general. And I stopped doing that because I was afraid of being the remix guy. But essentially I'm over that now. You know what I'm saying? I realized that I have fun making that kind of stuff. The only reason why I was trying not to do that is because I didn't want to put myself in the box. But by doing that, I put myself in a box. So one thing about lo-fi hip hop and just the instrumental space in general is it's a lot harder to get people to become fans of you if you're just in all these playlists. So I feel like what even got me success to begin with is, let's take Steven Universe for example. I took something that people were familiar with and I turned it into something my style. Granted, that's not really why it blew up. Like the sound just blew up. People just like using it in the background of their videos, whatever. But just to keep it real, that's a necessity in the instrumental space at least. So sampling popular things, doing covers of popular things, just taking any aspect of pop culture and mixing it into your content, mixing it into your music. That's something that's super important for instrumental people, just so that people can actually pay attention. When it comes to artists, singers, rappers, people like Nick D, they're writing songs and those lyrics actually engage the viewers way more than a beat would do. So for my strategy, I plan on doing at least 1 or 2 of those a month, and mostly just 1 or 2 because with DistroKid and doing covers, sometimes it can take like a week or 2 for DistroKid to actually obtain the cover license for you, which is actually a great segue to talk about our channel sponsor DistroKid. If you don't know what DistroKid is, it is one of the best ways to get your music out there on all streaming platforms. I've been using them from the jump and I haven't had any issues. My music is always delivered to stores prompt, quickly, sometimes even the next day if I want. And they actually just released a new app for Android. So with the DistroKid app, you can pretty much do everything you can do on the website: upload songs, check your stats, check your bank, make withdrawals, all the things you want to do. Now you can do them on the go on iOS and Android. And at just $23 a year, you can upload unlimited music to all the major streaming platforms. And if you use my affiliate link in the description, you can get 7% off while also helping out the channel a lot. So shout out to DistroKid. Let's get back into the video. Now on to the third strategy, which is collaboration. Now collaboration is usually in my strategy every year, but this year I plan on taking it a bit further. Let me tell you how. So when I was reflecting, I pretty much realized like a lot of my bigger songs in 2023 were all collaborations. So like my Boondock song, that was a collaboration with Seb Zillner. He did a super cool flute melody. My Snowfi album, Seb again on sax. I collaborated with piano players, guitarists, my guy Mondo Loops. I did a collab with One Heart and Lusion. Marketing wise, the best thing about collaborations is one, you can share audiences. You can share monthly listeners, you can share their Instagram followers, whatever it may be. You share that when you do a collab, and that can only grow you. Another thing marketing wise that is actually the shift that I'm going to be making with my collaboration strategy is I've noticed that whether it's with YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it may be, shifting the focus away from you and your content has been something I've noticed to do well. Like, people love you, obviously they're following you for you, but they love when you bring people around. They love when you're with other people. Just having a second person in the thumbnail, having a second person in the studio session with you, it comes off way more fun. A lot of people commented on the video where I was with the hood rapper, my boy Grizzy. A lot of people were commenting like, oh, I love this side of L.Dre. He's having so much fun. It's so much fun. Same thing with my video with Decap. Same thing with my video with Chris Punsalon. And it's just a recipe for making better music and better content overall. So that is something I'm going to be focusing on heavily this year. Now, these next few strategies aren't Spotify specific. So these go beyond that, with number 6 tying everything in. But number 4 will be to simply take action on my ideas. If you're like me, you probably have a notes app filled with ideas, or like a to-do list app filled with things that you want to do. You'll just be outside with your family, with your friends, and you'll just come up with a specific idea for a project. For example, I should remix this song, or I should make a J Dilla inspired album, all these type of things. And like, for me, it goes even bigger than that. Like, I want to do more releases on vinyl. I want to make more merch and all types of things that I come up with all the time that I simply don't take the time to put those ideas into action. So my plan is to have a time block every single week to just review ideas and take action on at least 1 or 2 ideas a week, or 1 or 2 ideas every other week or something like that. And honestly, I think that's going to be a game changer for me. Which also takes me to number 5. In my last video where I was talking about my decline, I mentioned that part of the reason of my decline was the business side kind of took over my love for music, and making music stopped being as fun. And I pretty much just stopped learning because I had to catch up with just projects, money, whatever was making me the most money at the time. That's what my focus was on. So this year I plan to block out time to practice music and become a student again. And I'm very serious about this. I know I talk about it every single year probably, but I want to learn keys. I want to get better at making melodies. I love samples, but I sample too much. It's gotten to the point where I rely on samples. I want to learn my gear. I want to use my OP1 more. I want to use all of my hardware gear. I just got this little TX6 from Teenage Engineering. You're probably looking at it like, huh, what does that do? I didn't know either, but I've actually been spending time to figure out how to use it. I've been watching tutorials. I've been reading the manual on these things, and which in return is making me have more fun making music. So essentially, if I can block out a few hours a week dedicated to just learning and just practicing a new skill, the only thing that can happen is my music will get better. My skills will get better. My samples will get better. And in return, I will get better. Now on to number 6. The reason why I say number 6 is the most important is simply because this will tie in every single thing I've talked about in this video. I've recently been privy to a new game-changing strategy to schedule out my year, and it is called the 12-week year method. Now, I'm gonna probably do a whole separate video on this because it's just way too much to pack into the end of this video. But essentially, with the 12-week year, you kind of change your mindset, as opposed to you set some goals in January and then by December you reflect on those goals and you realize, hey, I didn't do half of those, or I just completely forgot about that. I didn't even care to achieve that anymore. That happens to me all the time. But with the 12-week year, you're pretty much taking a year 12 weeks at a time. So you got 4 years in one. So for me, where I feel like I'm going to benefit from that is my schedule is usually all over the place. I go day to day with this kind of stuff, but this will give me a specific structure and it'll give me some urgency. You know how you feel at the end of the year? You're like, oh, you're reflecting, you're planning, you're feeling good. Imagine if you had that 4 times in a year. Imagine if the new year, new me effect was 4 times in 1 year. So pretty much at the end of every 12 weeks, I'll have a set of goals that I meant to achieve in that 12 weeks. I'll reflect, and then I'll set new goals. Like the previous example of setting a goal and forgetting about it by December. If you're going 12 weeks at a time, at the end of those 12 weeks, you can adjust your strategy. So you're like, okay, this isn't serving me as much. I don't really care about this as much. Let's plan something else. So 4 times out of the year, you're gonna do that. And for me, that's like, that was some mind-blowing stuff. So essentially, if we want to get a proper title for this, number 6, I'd say the art of scheduling. So I mentioned in the previous ones about time blocks and stuff like that. So when you're going about scheduling your week, you can specifically block out time. So there's a strategic block where you set up 4 hours and you just only do specific strategic stuff. But you can also set out breakout blocks where you actually take a break from what you're supposed to be doing. You schedule in a break. There's also like a fluff block or something like that, where it's a block of time for just doing stuff like email, this or that. It's a whole lot. It's way too much to jam into the end of this video, but essentially I'm going to be scheduling myself a lot better, holding myself more accountable, and pretty much having a systematic schedule every single week that includes blocks of time that I will have a purpose for. So like I said, I want to practice and learn piano and stuff like that. Every week, a few days out of the week, I'll set out a block of time where 100%, no matter what's going on, I'm tossing my phones out of the room. I'm not answering calls. I'm not answering emails. I'm practicing piano for that specific amount of time. And I could do that for anything. I have this album idea. Okay, for the next 2 weeks, every Wednesday and Friday for 2 hours, I'm only gonna work on this album. And I feel like honestly, that's gonna be a game changer. So whether it's the releasing frequently, worrying less about editorials, or focusing more on the things that made me popular in the first place, everything I said in this video is going to benefit from this actual strategy right here. I think when I reflect on this video at the end of 2024, I think I'm going to be really happy that I found out about this book and that I made this decision. Ideally, don't wait till I make that video because I haven't finished the book yet. If you want to get it, I'll leave a link in the description or just go find it. It's called The 12-Week Year. So yeah, that's it. Let's get this shit, man. I love you guys so much. I love getting the comments on people who say they've taken my advice and they got 100,000 monthly listeners now on Spotify and all this kind of stuff. Let's just keep going. Like life is ever so changing. Strategies come, strategies go, algorithms change. So follow all of this at your own risk. This is what works for me. Obviously, it's different for people who maybe don't have a fan base already. Maybe you still want to focus on editorials. Maybe you don't need to practice so much. Whatever it may be, find out what works best for you and just stay consistent with it. Thank you for watching. I'm L.Dre and I'll catch you in the next one.